Hello everyone, Patricius Juanano here. Today's topic is monitor model. Monitor model is proposed by Stephen Krashen, and it is actually still a hypothesis, so it needs to undergo a lot of testing before it becomes a really valid theory. But anyhow, monitor model is quite helpful. If you are a language teacher, it will help you manage your class better. Today we are going to learn 5 principles or 5 hypotheses under monitor model, and I will tell you how that will help your teaching. Okay, let's delve into my PowerPoint presentation. So this is our topic, Krashen's monitor model. Okay, now let's begin with the first hypothesis. It's called comprehensible input. Comprehensible means understandable. Input means every utterance, every sentence that is given to the learners, to a language learner. So in principle, comprehensible input says that learning is successful if the input is slightly more difficult than the learner's current level of mastery. Yeah, so the input that the learners are exposed to must be slightly difficult. Not too difficult, not too easy, but slightly more difficult than their present level of proficiency. And this is important. Learners have to be able to comprehend or to understand the input. So if you are a language teacher and you speak to your learners, to your students, make sure that they understand what you mean, that there are words or phrases in your sentences that they understand. Not necessarily all of the sentences, but only parts of the sentences. If they can understand parts of the sentences that you say to them, then it's comprehensible input. It is input that they can still understand. Okay, and remember that it has to be slightly more difficult than their present or their current level of proficiency. Yeah. Okay, let me give you an example. So for example, a teacher says to the students, okay, students, this is a book. It is called dictionary. If you don't understand the meaning of a word, you open the book and find the meaning. Now you can see the highlighted or the words printed in bold, like book and meaning and open the book. They are inputs that are comprehensible by the students. They are input that can be understood quickly or easily by the students. They don't have to understand all of the words in the sentence by the teacher, but at least they understand and they can comprehend some of the words. Here, the word book, meaning, and open the book are the words, are the input that they can understand. And it is comprehensible input. Okay, now the next one. Another example will be the students read a text and with many familiar words in the text. So you give them a text and make sure that many of the words are familiar to them, that they have known those words. The new words are comprehensible input for them. Yeah, so these new words are comprehensible input for them. What about the rest of the words? Yes, they can guess the meaning of the unfamiliar words by using the context. And so now they face a more slightly difficult text, but they understand some of the text and it's okay. It's good. They are on the right track for learning because in that text, although it is slightly difficult than their present mastery, still contains some input, some words which they can understand. And that's the idea of comprehensible input. Okay. Okay, the next one is affective filter hypothesis. Now, affective filter hypothesis has something to do with how your students feel. this the emotion of the students' emotion, the students' affective filter. Yeah. So this states that learners will learn more easily when the atmosphere is not threatening. Yeah. So low affective filter means relaxed, friendly. As a teacher, you have to be friendly to your students, not very rigid. You don't correct every mistakes that they make. Yeah, you are not being very rigid. Yeah, you just let them speak. You are easy on their mistakes. Yeah, you don't correct them every time they make mistakes. That's the principle of a low affective filter. So if you can create a relaxed situation in your classroom, if you can become friendly to your students, if you are not very rigid in your teaching, if you don't correct errors too often and too strictly, then your class has a low affective filter. Low affective filter means comfortable situation, comfortable atmosphere, and your students can learn optimally in that situation or in that atmosphere. Yeah. Now let me give you an example. So the examples of a low affective filter is a conversation between students. So you let your students speak and the teacher observes them and offers help if necessary. If they get into difficulty of finding finding the right expressions for something, then you offer your help. You tell them the right expressions for something. And then no error correction from the teacher. So you do not correct errors. You probably hear some mistakes, some errors here and there in terms of grammar and pronunciation, but it's okay. Just let them speak freely without any error correction. Yeah. And then another situation will be the teacher chats with students focused on meaning. Focus on meaning means you do not really care about the grammar, but you focus on meaning. Yeah. And the teacher keeps the conversation going and never correcting mistakes. See? Then she asks them to sing together. As a teacher, you can get your students to uh, get up on their feet and then you can sing songs together or even play games in a fun atmosphere. You get them to play games, yeah, which is fun. So these are cases of low affective filter. The situation which is comfortable, which is easy, and that helps your learners to learn better. Okay. In contrast to that, there is a high affective filter. Now, example of a high affective filter is something like this. The teacher drills the students with grammar patterns. So you put a sentence, a certain grammar pattern on the whiteboard, and then you have the students repeat the sentence over and over again until they get it correct. Every time students make mistakes, the teacher corrects them. That's wrong. Say it like this. Now that's a strict error correction. And if you do this, you will create a high affective filter. High affective filter means your atmosphere is threatening to the students. They feel anxious. Yeah, they feel threatened by the atmosphere. They are afraid of making mistakes. They are afraid of being corrected by you as a teacher. Now that is a high affective filter. Try not to do this too often in your language classroom or in your language class. Yeah. Okay. Now the next hypothesis is called acquisition and learning. Acquisition means mastering the language through activities that are focused on meaning. Again, focus on meaning means that you do not really care about grammar mistakes and pronunciation mistakes. You just let it flow. You just let your students perform and speak. Yeah. And also it is rich with comprehensible input. Remember, comprehensible input is sentences or utterances or words which your students can understand. And in a low affective filter. Still remember, low affective filter means easy, comfortable atmosphere. Yeah. So if this happens, then your students can acquire the language. Yeah. In contrast to that is learning the language. As opposed to acquisition of the language, there is a learning of the language. Now, learning of the language means mastering the language through focus on patterns and strict grammar correction. Now, if you follow a syllabus, okay, after this, after this, after present tense, past tense, after past tense, past perfect tense, and etc. And then you teach them rigid grammar patterns with strict error correction, then it is a learning. Your students will learn, but probably they do not acquire. Yeah? They will still learn the language, but they do not acquire the language, because learning and acquiring the language are two different things. Okay. The next one is the hypothesis called order of acquisition. Now, this is no less than sequence of mastery. So, in mastering the language, your students will go through a sequence, an order. And so, pre-production, in which they can only say maybe one word, and then early production, in which they can begin to say a longer expression, and speech emergence, they can now form a sentence or utterance, and then intermediate production, their sentences will become more complex, yeah, with compound sentences and complex sentences. And then advanced production, they are very fluent in producing the language. But this is not, I do not emphasize too much on order of acquisition. Yeah. Instead, I'm going to talk about the last one, last but not least. It is the monitor hypothesis. Now, monitor hypothesis essentially states that learners can monitor their performance by paying attention to their grammatical or pronunciation accuracy. So, well, actually, we do this all the time. Yeah, you as a teacher also do this from time to time. When we speak a foreign language, for example, English, our mind constantly monitors our speech, our accuracy, pronunciation, grammar, the right choice of words. Yeah, our brain constantly monitors those aspects so as not to make mistakes. Yeah. So, for example, your student says, "I'm working," and then she pauses a little, and then she continues, "I am working on my project." Now, this pause here is a proof that she monitors her performance. She monitors her performance and she finds out that she missed the word am here. And that's why she pauses and then she continues again, "I am working on my project." Yeah. So this is a monitor hypothesis. How do you get your students to monitor their own performance? Yeah, of course, they have to learn from you the correct grammar, the correct pronunciation, the right choice of words. Yeah, in that way, they will be equipped with system which they can use to monitor their own performance. Okay, so that's all about the monitor model. I hope that will be useful for your own teaching. See you again in my next episode.